Raffi smells the Tal Shiar, Picard smells Starfleet, and Rizzo can smell her on you. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton. My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we are doing a review of Picard Season 1, Episode 3, called The End is the Beginning, directed by Hannah M. Culpepper. Did you get all those references? They were toughies.
A lot of smell-related ones. So
yeah, well, it worked out well because it turns out that they actually said, "I smell fill in the blank" 3 times in that episode. First was Raffi says, "I smell the Tal Shiar," right? She says, "I smell the Tal Shiar" to Picard, and then Picard, when he goes into Rios's ship. And he says, "Oh, you've got this in place and that in place and all this." He's like, "I smell Starfleet on you."
No, he did. He did say that.
And then Rizzo, who is Narek, aka Nerold's sister, when she comes up close to him, she goes, "I can smell her on you." Talking about Soji, Dodge's twin sister. But I'm going to keep calling Narek Nerold because I think that he looks more like a Nerold, old chap. I'm Nerold, the little Romulan. I'm the Romulan deviant Nerold.
Yeah, Nerold.
So anyway.
I love the accent. You got to keep that up. That's working.
Thanks. How are you today, Cirroc?
I'm doing good. I just got a message here. Picard doesn't like the accent. So we'll have to see if that... But no, I'm doing well. This episode was pretty good. There were some things in it that I liked. It started off a little slow for me. We had watched the whole thing in sequence from the 3 episodes originally, and so I didn't know where one stopped and one started. So watching this particular episode, it opens with the Picard and is it Raffi?
Yeah, Raffi, the girl that is watering some plants and smoking other plants, right?
Yeah, watering some plants and smoking the other
others. Yeah,
I mean, I think I've been waiting to bring this up, but yeah, Star Trek has introduced the new vape pen, so they are now going to be in the vaping business. I think CBDs and THCs.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's a good point.
Unofficial announcement. No, but I thought that was interesting that they brought that in. It's something that you don't really see too much of. Mm-hmm. Even though it's common in our day to see people smoking. I mean, I don't know how long smoking cigarettes and things of that nature go back, but it was funny to see them actually bring it here into this episode. I don't recall it being ever really prolific in a Star Trek episode, if I'm not mistaken.
Smoking. There's one scene I can think of that was hilarious. It was on Enterprise, and Archer and T'Pol, who's a Vulcan, they go back in time for something. I don't remember if it was the beginning of the 4th season when they go back to fight the Nazis or whatever it was, or if it was something else. But T'Pol is sitting in a car, and it's like the 50s or the 40s, and the driver of that car, he lights up a cigarette, and he starts hitting it, and she just kind of like looks over in disgust, and she's like, "What are you doing? What is it?" He's like, "Oh, I'm smoking a cigarette." And she just looks at him, she goes, "Extinguish that." So I guess we've evolved to the point where smoking is dead and gone and appalling and disgusting. And then we revert right back to it by the time Picard's timeline comes back in, or in that time 100 years later, or 200 years later, actually, as it were.
200 years later, yeah. Mm-hmm. So when I was watching the screening that we had, I actually happened to sit next to Marina Sirtis for the premiere.
Cool.
Of Picard. So it was really cool sitting next to her and talking with her. Her husband had just recently passed away. Yeah. The same day as Renee Aubergenois, actually.
Right.
So we we have a special place in our heart for her grieving that she's doing right now. But I got a chance to talk with her and hear different little tidbits as she commented throughout the show, which was something that I cherish.
Yeah.
And but one of them that I'll share, the most I won't share, but the one that I'll share is the one where she brought up the Vasquez rocks.
Right.
And when on the screen comes up Vasquez rocks in the middle of the desert, she looks over at me and she says, "Oh, we filmed so many times over there." It's it was like a little play, a little comedic nugget that they put in for those of us that know.
Yeah, it's so iconic. It's like the iconic Star Trek location. And any Star Trek fans that like visit LA, they always want to take a trip up to Vasquez Rocks, and then they pretend like they're the Gorn or they're Kirk or something like that. That's like the special Star Trek place is Vasquez Rocks. Yeah. It's good that you brought up Marina and her husband. You're right. It was on the same day, or definitely the same weekend as Renee. It was really sad, very sudden. And that was at the premiere in Hollywood. We went to that. We got to see the first 3 episodes. So we kind of watched it in like an overarching 2-hour thing. So it is interesting to watch these individually as singular 40-minute episodes, so we can kind of sink our teeth into them a little bit more, a little bit better, and we can kind of see how every episode has its own voice, its own flavor, its own theme. Did you feel like, how did you feel this one differed from the first 2?
I felt the slowing down in the pace a little bit. It also opened, like I said, it opened with this kind of a slow conversational piece, and I think it was talking about, Picard just comes out of some kind of meeting that he has with higher ups, and he offers his resignation, or either let me do this or accept my resignation, right?
Yeah, it was great because it's like a little throwback Thursday for us, right? It was said like 12 years before. We get to see Raffi in the cool Starfleet uniform. I want to know what people think of that Starfleet uniform in the comments below. I think it looks great. I think anything that looks similar to the Starfleet uniforms we're used to, but has like a new sharp take on it, I love that kind of stuff. But what were you saying?
Yes. No, I was alluding to what you were about to highlight, which is we do get a little throwback on the relationship between Raffi and Picard, and how she stuck up for him in that particular moment, which is why she has this grudge now, right?
Yeah, and it was a cool way to reveal that, even though we already knew it, but it's always good to see how it affected other people. There's a really good quote in there that I liked. See if I can find it. When they're having that conversation, and she says, she basically says, "So that's it?" He's like, "Yeah." She's like, "You always have some kind of last desperate, wild solution." And he says, "My resignation is my last desperate, wild solution," which just shows the desperation of it all, that he has tried everything and he's finally like throwing up his hands in the biggest way possible. And in his biggest way of resisting possible is by resigning and hoping that will show them something or tell him how serious he is. And they just accept his resignation. They say, "Sorry." And that shows how big this is and how high up it goes, that they're just going to accept the resignation of one of their most, decorated officers and just say, "Well, tough. We're not changing our minds."
Yeah. And then, that also gave us a little bit of background, not only of just how his Starfleet career ended abruptly, but it also shows us what sent him to that chateau. And he alludes later on in this episode that he really wasn't happy at the chateau.
Right.
I think he says that to his Romulan friends. "I never really felt good. It never felt right." Something to that degree. I didn't write it down exactly.
Perfect Picard right there.
But that's when you see that that lifestyle of him being resigned to the chateau and living on this vineyard is not what he wants for himself. He
Right.
wasn't truly happy there, right? And he preferred to be in the fight. So yeah.
He liked to be out in the stars, out exploring, out making peace treaties, making a difference. Him, at first we think, oh, he's happy. He's out in his chateau. He's got his wine. This must be his golden years. He must be retired and so happy. But then we find out he didn't want to retire. He wanted to live out his life exploring the stars and saving worlds.
Yeah. And to me, there's also so what we're seeing here with the serialization of this particular show, as we alluded to in the beginning, we watched the first 3 episodes all back to back at the premiere, so it actually felt like one production, one full solid piece of work. Right? It actually played out like a movie. So when you watch it broken up into these segments, it then allows you to kind of see it for its smaller, to analyze each piece out of these 3 pieces. And what I get out of it is sometimes I miss these standalone episodes. And we just, we talk about DS9 and some of the things that DS9 does well is bring up these really thought-provoking themes and throw it into one episode. And then the next episode is completely, we're on to something different. And I know it's really early in the game with Picard and we're still establishing a lot of things, but I do have a need to get that same kind of one standalone episode desire. I hope they move on to check off that box.
Yeah, it's
once we have built the cast.
It's a little bit more fulfilling to have a beginning, middle, and end in an episode where it closes out. They tie it in a nice bow, and everybody's happy. It all closes out and ends perfectly. I don't think we're going to get that in Picard. I think that the closest we're going to get is what we've seen with Discovery, which is Discovery is serialized like Picard is. It just goes from episode to episode to episode, like one long story. But within Discovery, there were 2 episodes that were very close to standalone episodes. They still connected with the others, but they're a little bit more standalone. One was the one with Harry Mudd that kind of goes back and forth in time over, and it's like a time loop similar to Cause and Effect in Next Generation. They just kind of go back and forth in that time loop with Harry Mudd. And the other one was when Michael Burnham and Saru go down to Saru's home planet of Pavo. No, it wasn't his home planet. It was a planet called Pavo, and the 2 of them go down there, and maybe there was a third person as well, actually. And that was kind of a standalone episode, but it does influence Saru and makes him feel, he gets like angry or stressed or whatever it is. But so I think that's the closest we're going to get with Picard is episodes that are close to standalone, but it's still serialized.
Right. And so I'm just taking note of it. It's a different style of storytelling. And it makes you have to have watched the other episodes to kind of know where we're at at this point, right? So it leaves you in the dark if you're just watching this episode and you just come in and you're like, all right, let me check out this show. And if you start at episode 3, you're like, what's going on here? I don't know who's who and what's going on. So there is a value to standalone episodes.
That's right. That's like kind of that question when a lot of people say, hey, I got a friend that wants to start watching Star Trek for the first time. What episode should I show them to introduce them? And people say, oh, you should show The Inner Light, Next Generation's The Inner Light, or I like to show people Cause and Effect, the episode I just showed, because it's kind of a standalone. It makes sense. It's easy to understand very quickly. But with Picard, you're going to be like, what episode? Got to start with episode 1, no choice, because if you start with any other episode, you're screwed.
You're screwed. So you really have to go right into it. So that was one of the things. I did actually make a note of the same kind of the resignation that he tendered, saying that was his last resort. I thought that was kind of poignant for how his how he went out in a blaze of glory, essentially, right?
Right. He stood up for what he believed in. Yeah.
Yeah, but I thought it was interesting because Rafi says something to the effect of, "What are you going to do? Go back to your chateau and write memoirs?" And I was thinking, well, isn't that what Jake's doing?
Nice.
What's wrong with sitting down writing memoirs?
We can't wait to see Jake Sisko on some planet as some revered writer that, like, he's written their constitution or something like that.
Yeah, he's the Plato of some colony on a planet somewhere. But yeah, the Vasquez Rock. So I remember filming over there at Vasquez, and I think it was the Battle to the Strong. I think that was the episode that we did around there, and I just remember how hot it was and how uncomfortable it was wearing the outfit that I was wearing in that heat. So shout out to Vasquez Rocks.
Well, I think every single one of your outfits looked uncomfortable, honestly.
Yeah.
Did you ever have a comfortable outfit?
No, not really. I think the most comfortable part of it was when I just was too young to realize what was comfortable and not comfortable. So when we started out, I wasn't really paying attention. But as I got older, I definitely started paying attention to the kind of fabrics, the materials, what was itchy, what was not, what was hot,
what was tight, what was not.
What was tight, what was not. Absolutely. But, back to Picard, I want to say that one of the things that I really like about his performances is how he listens. I think that Picard does a really good job, even when he's not speaking, of conveying these really good emotions. And when Ruffy is just giving him the business for, getting her fired and ruining her life, he listens in a way where he's kind of like, yeah, I deserved it. I deserve this yelling. You never called me once. You never looked out for me. And now you're asking me for a ship. But he listens in a way, which I want to give him credit for as an actor, in a way that really seems authentic to me.
That's a great note. You know who else does that really well that I noticed recently is Regina King. I don't know if you've seen Regina King as an actress, but she really almost shocked me with how incredible her acting is, her non-speaking acting. And I feel like there are a lot of actors that do that so well, which is, if you're just blowing us away with your acting when you're not even saying anything, that's what, who else does that well? Lena Headey in Game of Thrones, the lady who plays Cersei. Mm-hmm. Like, no matter what scene she's in, even if she doesn't even say a word, even if she's just standing in the background, it feels like she's owning that scene, and that scene is about her. And it's like Picard's doing that. Patrick Stewart is doing that really well too, but he's surrounded by really great actors too. And so it must be so cool for them as great actors to be working with another great actor who listens well and to feed off each other. So far, I haven't seen a weak link as far as the acting is concerned.
No, but it's a real testament to the performance, because remember, when they're filming this stuff, they have a close-up on both actors. So the editors can easily cut to the person that's speaking,
right?
Which is usually the person that gets most of the camera time, the person that's speaking. And they usually only cut to get reactionary faces, to see yes or no or whatever the response would be non-verbally.
Yeah.
But when you're speaking and they're showing the other actor, that means out of the choice of two things that they had, they liked his face of listening. And they chose to go to it more often than the person who's speaking. That just tells me how well Picard's listening face is, and how well he's conveyed that in those scenes.
Right. They tend to make their editing choices based on performance. And they want to say, what's the most interesting thing to see? What is conveying the mood of the scene the most? And if that's just a person listening with intent eyes, or somebody that you can see the thought process in their eyes while someone else is talking, they're going to pick that a lot of times,
Yeah, and I thought that Picard did a great job of conveying humility and a slight level of shame, for leaving her stranded. He did that in a really good way without saying a word.
Mm-hmm. He certainly is a man that seems like he has a lot of regrets and shame, like you say. Like Raffi kind of nudges him about it. She kind of talks down to him a little bit and reminds him that he walked out on Starfleet, he walked out on her, and he stood up for what he believed in. But he sure seems like he has a lot of regrets over the last 12 years.
Yeah, I mean, she says it pretty good. She says, you hand your resignation in and my ass gets fired.
Right.
So
she got like, screwed over. So now she's living in this hovel and he's got this chateau.
Yeah, exactly. You would think he'd do something like, I have a back house for you if you'd like to stay in my guest house. Instead, you stay in a trailer in the desert.
Which, by the way, we've only got a minute before we have to go to the break, but there was a major point that I thought about, which was in the future right now, we're supposed to be moneyless. There's no money. There's no currency. They've done away with it because they just work for the betterment of mankind. That's what they say, right? So
right.
If there is no money, if there is no wealth, there's no poverty, why is he in a castle and she is in a, quote, hovel? If there's no money, I don't understand that. That literally makes no sense to me. So if anybody can answer that in the comments below, let us know. But I think that seems like a loophole to me, or some kind of plot hole or something.
I think she's in the smoking zone of designated smoking area for
smoking section.
People with people with vape pens and want to live off the grid. So you got to smoke over there. That may be the answer. It's funny because Raffi calls him JL.
Yeah, Jean-Luc.
Jean-Luc. But it's like that's not exactly it doesn't roll off the tongue. It's not like a JP or a CJ. Well, JL.
Well, on that note, we're going to take a quick break. JLP? No, that doesn't work either. All right. We are going to come right back with the seventh rule. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the seventh rule with Cirroc Lofton, a.k.a.
Hello.
Jake Sisko from Deep Space Nine. My name's Ryan T. Husk, and we are reviewing episode 3 of Picard, called The End is the Beginning, and we're having fun doing it. So we're talking about wealth and poverty and how it doesn't exist in Starfleet, but somehow it also does exist in Starfleet.
But somehow it does.
Somehow. I've been calling the leftover Romulans that used to be Borgs, I've been calling them the Romu Borgs. So if you hear me mention the Romu Borgs, that's the weird hippie people that were taken over by the Borg, and they're that one lady's like flipping over cards. What was her name? Like Ramda, I think, something like that.
Oh, the tarot card player.
Yeah, what did you think of that scene where Soji, who is Dodge's twin, is in there with Hugh and Ramda, the tarot card reader? What do you think of
that? Well, I didn't have much about it. It was okay. It didn't blow me away. I was kind of interested in the tarot cards and the pictography that was on the cards themselves. I was trying to look into the details and see what images are they putting on the cards themselves. Mm-hmm. I'm always interested in these kinds of things. But one of the things that did stand out to me was in that scene, she calls her the Destroyer.
Right.
You're the Destroyer. You're the Destroyer.
And then the Romulan guy that they captured at JLP's place at the chateau, he calls her the Destroyer too.
Absolutely. And they cut to him saying she's the Destroyer. So interestingly enough, for me, when I heard the Destroyer, I think of the god Shiva, which is also known as the Destroyer.
Interesting. I didn't know she was called the Destroyer.
Yeah, the god Shiva, coming from the Hindu religion, is also called the Destroyer, known for their sensuality, their self-discipline. They're wrathful, avenging. They are also known as the Destroyer God or the Restorer God. So Shiva has an ancient connotations. Also wears the crescent moon on the top of their head, carries a trident. It's the god that's represented with 4 arms with a snake draped around its shoulders. So I always think of what kinds of mythology that they draw from.
Right. You said destroyer and restorer. I wonder if the other sister might be considered the restorer.
I wonder as well. So I always think, okay, they didn't just call her the destroyer out of nowhere. Shiva is constantly is well known as the destroyer.
Interesting.
So I thought there was some kind of relevance to that. I know that the writers are really well versed in world history.
I feel like somebody else was called the Destroyer in Ghostbusters. I feel like Rick Moranis, when he's tweaking out and he thinks he's the keymaster, the gatekeeper, whatever, and he's like, goes to the Destroyer, and he's tweaking out, talking about that, and then they say, would you like some coffee? And he says, do I? And he goes, yes, have some. And he goes, yes, have some. But anyway, I'm going off. But I think he called him like the Gozer the Destroyer as well. But anyway.
Yeah, but no. So I think there's some relevance to that. I don't know if there is or not, but I picked up on it. I also picked up on the Star Trek Rubik's Cube that they had in that scene, that very scene we're talking about. There was one of the other inmates or crazy people at the asylum was flipping around a Rubik's Cube, this futuristic Star Trek Rubik's Cube. And I was like, oh, that's interesting to see. Made a little note of that.
It was a Borg cube.
It was a Borg cube, right? A Borg Rubik's Cube.
Yeah.
The other thing was the woman she's talking to, the Romulans whose head she's trying to get into, who has the tarot cards in front of her. She says to her, she is a Romulan, right?
Yeah, she's a Romuborg. Yeah. I think her name was Ramda. Yeah, Ramda or something.
Okay. Like she was trying to go, and during this conversation, the idea of mythology and religion was brought up. And she said, no, it's the news. So
right. Yeah, that was good stuff.
That was good stuff. But once again, here we go. I just brought up mythology and religion when they talk about the destroyer, and then here we make that same kind of segue, with the dialogue. So I just think that there's something in there. I'm not sure what it is. Other thing I wanted to point out is it seems like there's this weird incestual thing between the Romulan brother and sister.
I think that's what they're trying to hint at, that they're a little too close for comfort, right?
Yeah, she's like, the way she smells him down. It's kind of like your wife. It's like your wife smelling you down when you come home. Like, you don't smell like you went to play basketball. Why do you smell like perfume? Or the smell down is something that usually happens between two people that are in a relationship together.
Interesting. She definitely came up close, very, very close to him, and was like, I can smell her on you. Now, they may just later on reveal that they're step brother and sister or something like that, because it seems like they're trying to hint, a little, speaking of Cersei Lannister, in Game of Thrones, that it seems like there may be a little, incestuousness there or something, but.
Yeah, I mean they're playing it for sure. So it's not like it's an accident. Clearly the director wants it and the actors are hitting those notes, right? So that's what I'm receiving. I'm like, oh, this is a weird relationship they have. It's not like the usual brother and sister, relationships that I see in my life, but
or maybe Romulans sure are just like that. Maybe to us,
maybe
hideous, and to them they think that's normal.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's all type of behaviors. Like I go to Ethiopia, and a lot of the men there like to hold hands when they walk around. And I asked if that was, a sign of their sexuality, or if that's just, they do.
It's just brotherly love.
Brotherly love. So every culture has its own thing. I just don't know
Are
enough about Romulan brother and sister
Are you going to be
culture.
adopting that culture, Cirroc? You gonna be holding hands?
Well, we'll see the next time we meet, Ryan. We'll see.
Oh, I'm gonna find out. So stay tuned for
No,
that.
but stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. There's another thing I wanted to bring up.
Yeah.
A strong female performance, because since we've been doing a lot of honoring of the women in Star Trek this year, and that's a lot of our focus. So I wanted to bring up the character Agnes P. Giraldi.
Yeah, you even got her middle name. There was the middle initial. Yeah, Agnes P. Girardi, I believe, is her name.
Girardi.
Right.
Yeah, I liked when she stood up for herself and said these words. I am a scientist who has spent her entire life imagining a miracle that it could never come to pass. And it has, and it's real. And then she goes on to say, I'm Agnes P. Girardi. I'm the Earth's leading expert on synthetic life. And I promise you, if you take me, I will earn my keep. But I like the way she stood up for herself in that moment. It was like, asserting that she is who she is. She was confident in herself. And she made a very good plea on why she's necessary to the equation. So I just like that.
That's Allison Pill. Do you know what she's been in before now? Because she is already known supposedly to be a great actress. So, I'm already kind of expecting it and I'm looking forward to it. And I agree she had a good moment there. And I think that was supposed to be her first kind of big moment to shine a little bit, where she stands on her own 2 feet and says, hey, I'm still, worth a lot. I'm not just like comic relief or the bumbling scientist or some girl that's standing on the bridge for no reason. She still is going to be saying a lot of funny things, like she says, oh, I like her, or whatever it was she said, about Robbie. But yeah, I don't know what she
But I just think it's important for the girls out there to see a strong woman that's not afraid to speak up for herself and say, I deserve to be here, I belong here. And I think that's important for people to get that message from a confident person.
That's a great point. It was American Horror Story is what she's been in previously. That's the big thing that she was in, American Horror Story. And to your point, to jump onto that point, not just seeing a strong female lead, because as you know, Star Trek is full of them.
Yes.
And more so now with Discovery and Picard, but different kinds of strong female leads. They don't all have to be, like a fighter, a freedom fighter like Kira.
Right.
They don't all have to be a boss like Catherine Janeway. They can be a brilliant scientist. They can be a commanding officer like Rafi. They can be a girl that's just strong and trying to figure out what's going on in her life, like Soji and Dodge. You know what I mean? Like, they have so many different, they realize that a strong female character comes up in a lot of different ways. There's not just one type. And the key is that inner strength, and how that manifests in what direction is kind of up to the character, up to the person, right?
Yeah, and Rafi is more like the Sarah Connor from Terminator strong.
Yeah, or Vasquez in Aliens. That was a great one.
Yeah, like she's like the girl with the cut off sleeves. You can see her arms. You can, and she'll punch. She'll put up a good fight. She'll knock somebody out. She's like a tough fighter, right? And then there's the kind of strength where it comes from standing up for yourself, by knowing that you're qualified, that you're competent, that you have self-worth, that you have something to offer, and you have a value that you bring. And that kind of confidence is what we see with this Agnes character. She's more like a shy scientist type person, but she stands up for herself. And I like the moment when she did. I think it's a positive sign out there for the people that are watching.
Right. We saw that type of character with Ezri Dax, I think. I think that's a similar, obviously they'll be very different. I'm sure we'll see. But if we were to look back and say, have we seen that type of character before? The only one I can think of is Ezri Dax is kind of like that.
Yeah, I think you're right about the Ezri comparison. It's a similar sort of not a dominant way to, assert yourself, but certainly a strong way.
Yeah, and knowing her worth and standing up for herself. Absolutely.
Yeah.
What's the other lady's name? The female Romulan that's really tough. There's
yeah,
Asha.
No, yeah, I don't have it written down here, but she's awesome too. I really like her as
she's
character.
Been great so far.
I don't know if we're going to see more of her.
Her name is Laris, and her husband's name is Jaban. Laris and Jaban.
I like the line. She says something, and I'm going to paraphrase. I don't know if I have it here in my notes, but she says something to the effect like, yeah, he's a big, dumb idiot from the north, just like you.
Yes. That was great.
And it reminded me like of an Italian couple. My ex-wife is Italian, so it reminds me of the interaction between an Italian couple. Like, yeah, he's from the north. He's from this part. He's from that part.
This old lug. And it's cool because it gives us a little bit more depth into the Romulans, because we can't help but think, all Romulans are the same, all Klingons are the same, but they want to remind us, hey, no, some Romulans are from the north, and we can't tell which ones it is, but her, just by looking at the guy, immediately knew, oh, this guy's a northerner,
And she's a badass, this character, Laris. What's her name?
Laris, yeah.
Laris. The moment where she kicks into action, where they're all inside of the chateau, and here comes the Jacques Var, or whatever it is, right?
Yeah,
the motorcycle, the motorcycle helmet guy, Jacques Vache. Yeah. So they come in, and she kicks into action like without even missing a beat. She drops to the floor and orders her husband to go get over there and do this, take him out of here. And she's like ready to go from the first ring of the bell. So I like that about her. I hope we get to see more of her character going forward, because I think she really has a very strong presence on camera.
We've had some great strong female Romulan characters in the past. Some that immediately jump out are Sayla, played by Denise Crosby, who is half Romulan. And also one that was great in one of my favorite episodes, Gambits, Part 1 and 2. There was a lady who was pretending to be a Vulcan. She was really a Romulan. She was a great character. I think we're going to like this one better than all the others, though, I think.
Yeah, and I know we're getting close to it, but I wanted to also say that I thought it was a very special moment. Right at the end of this episode, I know it's cheesy, maybe slightly, but it might be pandering to the base. But Picard says, "Engage."
We were waiting for it.
And right then the music kicks in. You can hear the Next Generation music, right?
Right.
And I love that the Next Generation music kicking in. It kind of gave me that little adrenaline boost in that moment. Like, oh shit, it's about to go down.
And then it doesn't. It just ends. But yeah.
And then it doesn't. Yeah.
It's still cool. Yeah.
But still, it was cool because we got his catchphrase, and we got the music, right? And it just left me with a good feeling, kind of residual feeling, like, okay, now where it begins the journey, and here we go. We're about to start it. So I actually feel like this is just the beginning. Like, essentially, this is a 3-part first episode, right?
Yeah, and that's why they showed us the 3 episodes of the premiere, because it's like a 3-episode arc that it's kind of like a 3-episode first act. You know what I mean? Like, they meet all the characters, they get a certain mission, they come together, and now there's 4 of them that are getting on this ship and are going to head out on this mission, which leads us to the newest character that we were introduced to, Captain Rios, who has his holograms. He had an emergency medical holographic doctor that had a British accent. Then he had an emergency navigational hologram that had an Irish accent, and it makes you wonder. A Scottish engineer. He's going to have a South African, pilot or whatever. I liked him. I thought
And
he was cool. I thought he was acted well. Miguel Cabrera, I think is his name. What'd you think of him?
I really like him. He's the guy that you kind of root for because he doesn't give a damn about anything, and he's kind of reminds me of the Harrison Ford in Star Wars character, where he's
Yeah.
he's the rogue badass guy that's like, I don't care, whatever.
And this is his Millennium Falcon, right?
And this is his Millennium Falcon. So yeah, I get that, and I like him because he feels real. He doesn't feel like he's trying to meet protocol, and I think that's one of the things that makes him more natural, right? He's kind of the laid back guy. He's drinking on the job. He's like got his feet up on the console, and he's like, "Don't give me any little mental psychology lessons here, Mister Speechwriter Picard. Just do you want to do it or not?"
Yeah,
And
it's
I
true.
like the way
He goes, yeah, Rafi told me you like your speeches or whatever.
yeah. So I'm not here to ramble on and listen to all that. Do you want to do it or not? I like him, and I like the fact that he pulls off these different accents. I'm just waiting to see the Jamaican hologram. I'm sure he's coming soon. And and I also wanted to say that it's interesting watching Discovery and Picard because, as far as I can tell, these are the first Star Trek shows that are airing without commercials.
Right.
And there's something to watching the whole thing without the commercial break and just letting it all play out through. I think it's an extra little added joy to watching these new shows. I don't have the breaks. I mean, it's the same as what I do with the DVDs and DS9, but just the first run air commercial free. One shout out to CBS All Access for delivering a really good product on a really good platform.
Well, you can you can pay a little bit less and have the commercials, but we just happen to pay a little bit more so that we don't have the commercials. And I think it's a good option to have. If they say, look, if you don't want the commercials, just kick down a couple extra bucks and that'll cover what we would have made from the commercials. Your choice. And what do we like? We like options.
We like options, and that's a good option because it just gives a different feel to the viewing experience.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, those were my big takeaways. Overall, though, like I said, I still feel like we're just beginning, so I don't want to get too critical until we've gotten really into the meat of the show.
Right.
This is still like the introductions to all the different characters and how everything's going to come together. So it's too early to be extra critical of what's going on. I still don't even know who's part of the crew yet. Well,
we basically have. It's going to be those four for now. There may be a fifth and a sixth person eventually. Like they'll probably rescue Soji or something, and she'll be another character on the ship. Maybe they'll add a 7 of 9, or maybe she'll just save them and give them valuable information. I'm sure that Riker and Troy, who we know are going to be on the show, they're not going to be joining the team. They're just going to be like giving him, a place to stay or whatever for a minute. But we know it's going to be those four. It's going to be Dr. Girardi. It's going to be Rafi. It's going to be Rios and Picard. And Rafi or Rios's band of merry holograms. I do feel like there need to be a couple more characters, though. Soji will definitely be one. She'll be like the fighter, the badass. We also know that there's going to be a character that hasn't been introduced yet. He's the one that looks like Elrond of Lord of the Rings. He's he's like a young Romulan fighter guy with long hair. I think the actor, I can't remember, Evan Gora. I believe he's like half Samoan and half Greek or something really interesting like that. But real quick, that reminds me, we saw a Romulan with a mullet in that board cube. I don't know if you caught that, but there was a Romulan that had a mullet, and I went and I looked at it twice because he had the regular Romulan bowl cut, but it was long in the back. It was during the tarot reading scene when he was kind of like one of the guards or whatever. He had a mullet, so check that out, guys. If you didn't see it, go back to that scene and check out the Romulan with the mullet.
I didn't check that out. I didn't pay attention to that.
It wasn't a good look.
It wasn't a good look. Was not. Okay.
No. Otherwise, I would try to grow my hair out, but I'm not going to do it.
I noticed that it was also like on Rios' ship seems a little dark for me. And it was interesting because it actually reminded me of the DS9 set in some ways, how
Or the
dark it
Defiant,
was.
maybe, yeah.
Yeah, it's just had that feel to it. Even some of the architecture and the angles and curves that they used in the pillars in the background, really similar, eerily similar. And one other thing I wanted to bring up, Ryan, is that I kind of miss Picard in the Starfleet uniform.
Yeah, he's not going to wear that anymore. I don't think we're going to ever see that again.
So we're gonna basically get Picard in this more casual look from now on. Right?
Yeah, I think that Picard even said that before, or Patrick Stewart. I think he said that was kind of one of his things, one of his I don't want to say demands, but he basically said, "Look, I'll do it if I don't have to wear that damn uniform ever again." And I feel like he even negotiated that into some of the movies or the last season of Next Generation, where he says he only wants to be in the uniform for 25% of the thing or 50% or something like that. And that's why you see him in the later movies. He's not in uniform most of the time. He's like in some other variation of something because they're caught on this planet, or he's got his jacket ripped off in First Contact and Saving the Day, showing off his guns and stuff like that. But those uniforms, man, I don't think people like them very much. They look cool.
They look cool, and I don't know. It adds to a little bit of the overall flavor when you're on the bridge. So
Prestige.
seeing him there with his legs crossed, wearing an outfit that I could be wearing right now, it doesn't have the same punch and pizzazz as if he were wearing a Starfleet uniform. I know he's not in Starfleet now and he's going rogue, but I just feel like they have to have some type of uniform. I don't know. It just seems a little awkward that everybody's wearing this casual kind of.
Just when you said that line, I want to give a shout out to Nichelle Nichols, Walter Koenig, and Renegades, because in the production that you and I worked on called Renegades, there's a line where Nichelle Uhura says to Walter, she says, "So you're going rogue," just like what you said, and he goes, "I prefer the term renegade." So I thought that was a really good line in our production, and when you said rogue, it reminded me of that. So shout out to Nichelle, shout out to Walter, two of the coolest people I've ever known.
Absolutely.
Wonderful humans. So we've only got a minute or two left. Any final overall thoughts before we run off?
I had a question about Free Cloud and what Free Cloud was, or is it a place?
We don't know.
Talked about before?
Nope. This is a brand new thing.
Yeah, I thought it was literally like the iCloud, like the cloud, the digital cloud that all the information stays on. But I guess it's a place.
Yeah, maybe it's like a Pirate Bay kind of thing. It's like, it's a piracy cloud. I don't know. But I did think about that. Like, this is like 300 or 400 years from the future, and they still have fairly similar technology to ours. So
I
see it though.
She's looking for Maddox on Free Cloud. So I just thought, whoa, okay, what is Free Cloud? It just makes me think, what is it? Is it the same kind of cloud system that we're used to thinking about?
Or maybe it's just like in Star Wars, it's Cloud City. Maybe it's Cloud City, and they're all free there.
Who knows? Who knows? But it was one of the questions I had, and overall, I think, like I said, we're getting into the meat of it, and I'm really looking forward to this episode 4 and 5. Now that we've set the stage for a lot of the things, I feel like now I'm going to start to really get a sense of where they're going to go with the show in 4 and 5. So I can't wait to tune in and see what's next.
Right, and we did find out that Commodore O is the head, the chief of Starfleet. They mentioned that
security, right?
Yeah, we had an idea, but now we know. So this infiltration is all the way up at the top now.
All the way, yeah.
We know.
She says, "I'm the director of Starfleet security," And it's funny because when she rolls up, she's wearing her Men in Black glasses. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Big old ears, yeah.
With her big old ears and those Tommy Lee Jones Men in Black glasses. Okay, there it is.
All right. Well, we better run, but I think we had a lot of fun this week, and we're looking forward to next week. Cirroc, Lofton, way to go. Great job, as always, calling in from L.A. I'm also in L.A. Let us know in the comments below where you guys are watching from. What city, what state, what country, what planet, quadrant.
Yeah.
But thanks very much for watching, and always remember the 7th rule.